morning, everyone. So we are going to get started in the next minute or so. Thank you for being here. Gracias por estar aquí presente. Vamos a estar teniendo, we're going to have some statements from the island nations that are not here necessarily represented at this COP. So as we go, we're going to start with Aldrin Calixte from Haiti, and then we are going to go to, we're going to read from San Andrés-Providence Islands, and after Aldrin and San Andrés-Providence Islands are to the north of Colombia. We are moving on to Puerto Rico with Marisa Reyes, and then to the Dominican Republic, and hopefully closing out with Sheila from Northern Mariana Islands. Thank you for being here, and give us one more minute. By climate change, we are the first affected. We've been living the impacts of climate change for close to a decade now, and we are the least responsible because of our size and population we are the least responsible for climate change. We also wanted to bring this press conference here because as island nations, most of our island nations suffer the chains of empire, as Julian Go mentioned, or the colonial chains are still at our feet, even though some of us won our victories a long time ago. So our islands are not represented here, many of them because we do not have an autonomous government, others because we're still tied to a larger empire. And part of what we're facing in this future and in the current situation is that the climate disasters and climate crises are being used to further economic interests, to move us from ancestral lands, and to further militarize and privatize control of our lands. And that is something that Haiti has lived in its own flesh for now decades, and that is something that the San Andrés-Providence Islands are going through, and we're going to talk about them. And it is also something that the eastern part of the Central America coast suffered after ETA and Añota, where the Garifuna and indigenous populations have lived for centuries resisting colonialism and imperialism, and now, thanks to ETA and Añota, the government is taking advantage of that to further the mestizo frontier and get them out of those lands so that they can be bought and sold. So we're gonna just be brief, each one of us, just a couple of minutes to talk about where we're at from each one of our perspectives. And as I mentioned, we're gonna start with Aldrin Calixte from Haiti. And Brother Aldrin, please.
The impact where we're suffering, the island most affected by the climate change. And unfortunately, we are less responsible for this situation. But unfortunately, we are most affected. For us, it's a really big injustice the world is facing now. I am from Haiti, the Caribbean island, one of the island most affected by the climate. In Haiti, we are only 27,000 kilometers and square. And now, all the year, we have climate issues. The drought is longer than before, and the raining is higher and really short. But one of the most impact is on agriculture issues. In Haiti, is a mountainous, 2/3 of the country is mountainous, and we have only 1/3 plain land. And it's really difficult to make irrigation, and most people produce is winning agriculture. When it's not winning, we lost our production. And when we lost our production, no food availability for the population. Why now they talk about poverty increase in Haiti? Unfortunately, when we observe the emission of Haiti is really low. Small, it's insignificant, but the impact is higher. Why I said before, it is the big injustice the world we are facing. And what the reason we said that has impacted population, we request the most country responsible of this situation to do something. Not only make some every years we got a cup and we make engagement like we will support affected country. We will put in the fund the basket fund many resources. But in reality, it's for me, it's a talk show every year. But now, I say, for the most people affected, most country, the developed country who was responsible of this situation, they have to act, not only speaking. We are all affected by this situation. One of other aspects I have to mention in my intervention is about the debt of those countries. When we have a climate shock, all resources, national resources, the government invests for the responses. And at this moment, the government, for development aspect, they request some loan from other financial institutions. And at this moment, the increase of the debt of the country increase. Most of people the country is increase their debt. And the third aspect I have to mention is the economical system, where they prioritize economical aspect and less in social and environmental aspect. And I said, we as a small island country, we request not a support, but for me it's a reparation. Because when you now people said, okay, there are some governance problem in the South country, but if you in the street, I get an example. If you be in the street, you drive and you crush a car off on a, you stop. You said, okay, it's my fault. I have to repair your car. I don't say what you did, the money I gave you. You use this money because it's your fault. But that's the same issues. All the country who are responsible of this situation, we said, you have to repair your fault. You have to repair it. When we talk about justice now, it's a way to prove that you are really concerned about justice. And also, stop when you have to make action. You make a commitment during the COP. You must act. We are suffering most of this situation. And also, when the last aspect I have to talk, it's about false solutions. To address the impact of climate change, they propose a lot of solutions. For us, they have, when they bring in the table those solutions, they just only change our attention to another aspect. But in reality, the best solution is to decrease the gas emission and also repair the situation we are facing now.
Thank you.
We are, last example, in 1972, we start in Stockholm, we start talking about environmental issues. Next year, it will be 50 years after. In reality, what is the solution? I think for us, we have to do something to protect our nature. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, my name is Dale Brown, owner of Sager Farm of the Virgin Islands. I am a farmer and an advocate for environmental justice, food security and sovereignty. Climate change is real and one which presently is impacting our territory's agriculture. As of 2015, the United States Virgin Islands, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John has been impacted with more frequent droughts. This year, coupled with the pandemic, our territory has had a run of a 9-month drought. And to add to that, we are now in the region's hurricane season. Our rainfall has been fewer and further apart annually. Our rainy season has changed, and as farmers, we have been resilient and have adopted our growing seasons to mitigate the economic impact we are faced with. The Caribbean region has also seen a rise in strength of hurricanes. Hurricane strength has been Category 3 and 4 and has become more devastating to our agricultural development. Our island's landmass is of limited resources and requires that we use as much acreage for the purpose of food security, especially since we are a colony of the United States of America and 97% of our food is imported. Our colonial ties do not negate the importance of need for an aggressive push on climate change because this is our island home. I am in solidarity with the region's colonies and island nations in addressing COP26 to pay attention to needs of our region. The UN must address economic efforts for sustainability and food security from those nations which encompass oversight of those territories, especially those who have second-class citizenship status.
Good morning, my name is Benicia Albert and I'm with the Climate Justice Alliance. However, today I will be reading a statement on behalf of San Andreas and the Providence Islands. My name is Connie Archibald Robinson, and I am submitting these comments on behalf of the Riazal people in the Western Caribbean archipelago of San Andreas, Providencia, and Santa Catalina Islands, the Sea Flower Biosphere Reserve of Colombia. First, we denounce the exclusive nature of the COP26 conference, the chaotic and last-minute nature of plans to help support participation from overseas are too little, too late. for the people who are living on the front line of climate impacts to meaningfully participate and shape our global priorities at this pivotal moment. In the late 2020, Hurricanes Eta and Iota devastated our archipelago. Iota resulted in a 98% infrastructure loss in 2 of our 3 islands. In Providencia and Santa Catalina Islands, the hardest hit, we reject the outsized military presence mainland Colombia has forced on our peaceful islands post-hurricane. For 245 days, our brave fisher people at the Dignity Camp have stood up against one blatant example, an illegal Coast Guard station in the Bowden Gully, our ancestral fishing zone. We continue to demand that they leave this site now and that the massive public resources going to military uses instead of building a hurricane-ready hospital, schools, homes for the families who have now passed a year of their lives in tents. As a biosphere reserve, we further demand that the UNESCO and the United Nations sponsor an international entity to ensure that the biosphere reserves prohibit industrial fishing and agriculture and other large-scale activities which harm our regional and global ecosystems through the overuse of fossil fuels and destruction of natural ecosystems. Biosphere reserves have to be not only named, but governed through obligatory rules and policies in support of global climate goals. Crimes against these sensitive environmental regions should be treated as crimes against humanity, given their disruption of the ecosystems and exacerbation of our climate crisis. We further see a role of UNESCO and the United Nations to facilitate investment, capital, and community accessible grants in support of solidarity economy efforts as just and sustainable alternatives for economic security and development in island and coastal communities such as ours. Real Reparations Fund, reparations, they owe us. That's it, sorry. But thank you all for the time and the honor to read this statement on behalf of the community.
We're suffering the same that 80 in St. Croix. The droughts since 2015, the raising of the sea because of the hurricanes that we have, also category 4 and 5. But the big problem, and everybody in the island is agree with that is the colony. Is that the biggest problem that we are confronting, because we have the imperialist governments that just do what they want with these islands and increase our insecurity and give us just plan of austerity. With the debt that we have back at home in Puerto Rico that has not been audited, and we are paying an illegal debit and we don't want to pay it, but the government and United States says that we have to. With all that money, we can rebuild and do a better planning for a climate crisis. So that's why we are here, just to say that we know as an island we are suffering the climate crisis, but also we have the solutions from the grassroots. We are building agroecology farming for our security, for our sovereignty, food sovereignty, but also increasing the dunes on the coast because we are losing our beaches. So we need better planning, but we need money for that, for the security, for our just transitions, for be part of the space and not to move to another part. We don't want to be climate migrants. We don't want, and we have the solutions for not do that, but the big governments has to take out the hands from us. Thank you.
The island shared between the Dominican Republic and Haiti is an island rich in minerals of all kinds, and this wealth makes it a target for extractive industries. In the Dominican Republic, community and social environmental organizations live permanently in the process of struggles and resistance against mining exploitation, the excessive use of environmental resources, and against the grabbing of land used for agriculture that is developing processes empowering and confronting extractive industries which damage our water sources, take over the lands of peasants, and displace communities, and prey on ecological reserves, drastically affecting biodiversity and the common good. The Dominican Republic, which is geographically divided into 3 regions, the southern region, eastern region, and the northern region. These at the same time are divided into sub-regions, northeast, northwest, southeast. And each of the regions and sub-regions there is a conflict, or rather a process of defense of the territories against extractivism that is being developed. In the southern region, resistance processes are being developed against mining exploration and exploitation of the province of San Juan de la Maguana. In the province of Barahona, actions against the expansions of monoculture, specifically against land grabbing for planting of sugarcane, displacing peasants from their lands. As resistance to this reality, the region has organized dozens of organizations to denounce this action, and also proposed that the collectivization of this mill and the redistribution of land so that the peasant families can produce crops and contribute to the agri-food development.
Gracias.
Thank you. Hafadei Tiro Castellalia Menko. My name is Sheila Jack Babauta, daughter of Diego Regis Babauta and Dolorina Wolbacker Jack Babauta. I was born and raised in the Mariana Islands on an island called Saipan, next to the Marianas Trench, the world's deepest point in our ocean. I am a climate justice weaver with the Micronesian Climate Change Alliance. I serve as a member in the 22nd CNMI House of Representatives. I am the chairwoman of the Friends of the Marianas Trench, and I serve as a board member on Our Commonwealth 670, where we aim to educate our community in the Marianas about militarization. I am here today because climate colonialism is our reality in the Pacific Islands. Where I'm from in the Mariana Islands, we are living daily with climate colonialism. Our environment isn't passively changing, it's being colonized. At an ever-increasing rate and in an ever-increasing ways, it dominates, occupies, and militarizes our islands. And yet, it doesn't provide us any real ability to have a say in their actions, which threaten the very existence of our native and endemic species and contaminate our lands and waters, which then threatens the health and well-being of our people. We urgently need climate justice and genuine security. These types of efforts and solutions get pennies compared to the over $700 billion the US budgets for military spending annually. Yet the US military is the largest polluter on the planet, and continual stories of chemical leaks, fuel spills, and more at these bases around the world, and specifically in our region, forewarns us of their legacy. We urgently need world leaders to address the biggest contributor of planetary pollution, the global military. War fuels the warming, and as of today, the climate protocols exempt militaries from complying to too many regulations put in place to protect environments, communities, and community resources. Our reality has been that there is no real accountability for the toxins, pollutants, inefficiencies, injustices, and needless death that the war machine commits every day. Our skies are becoming bare, our jungles becoming quiet, the bright birds that once filled them with song are becoming less and less, with half of our native species having gone extinct in just the last few decades. Our catches from the sea are fewer and smaller. Our forests and oceans are now severely less diverse, and the overall health of our forests, rivers, and seas are declining. The world is recognizing the devastating nature of the activities which are currently happening in our surrounding waters within a military training and testing area. Nearly 1 million square nautical miles. Specifically, for many years now, we have all been learning of the great harms that Navy active sonar, ship strikes, torpedo countermeasures, and in-water explosives cause to dolphins and whales. And on top of all that we are fighting for, we are now also struggling to keep from harm the cetaceans that have shared our waters for hundreds, if not thousands of years. We need to end all exemptions on military activities. We need to end war over oil. Affected communities need to have real voices and to be truly considered. We need the endless taking of the land and sea and the pushing of communities farther and farther aside. We need to be proactive and protect the sacred waters, lands, air, and future from greed and violence. Colonialism created and is accelerating climate change and its devastating impacts to frontline communities. This is the stark reality of the islands I come from and all the small island nations across Oceania. We need world leaders to listen to our voices, our stories, and witness our harsh realities. We need collaboration and interconnection to create real, equitable climate solutions. Thank you.
And now that we have finished with our voices, we have heard from our brothers and sisters from island nations. Thank you to everyone that made this press conference possible, especially the Grassroots Global Justice Alliance, Boricua La Via Campesina, Land Workers Alliance for hosting us, and NFU for being here. And just to summarize, we all agree from our islands we have lived and we have solutions which are real reparations funds. They owe us, as Aldrin very well summarized. Community well-being needs to be prioritized over economic development. False solutions are just a diversion, and we cannot waste our time on them. We need to keep fostering and funding those real solutions. We have solidarity, and particularly solidarity from the islands that are second-class citizens to the empires that hold them, and that solidarity can only come from people whose voices are heard in these spaces. We have to focus on land collectivization, as was shown already by Dominican Republic, and recognize the unequal burden that the islands hold, and particularly because that unequal burden is being imported by militarization throughout the globe, as the example from San Andres and Providence Islands, which are currently, right now, living the attack of the Colombian military to get them out of their ancestral fishery lands. And for that, like Sheila mentioned, war is fueling the warming, and we need to end all of the exemptions to the military. And lastly, this COP has exemplified the idea of no net zero, one of those false solutions that was mentioned. And we have to understand that no net zero means simply trading our lives in the islands to keep the livelihood of those people in the global north. And from our islands, we say no more. So with that, I will open up to questions. Thank you. The time that we had, and I would also lastly want to thank Global Justice. Joe, thank you for being here and for helping us put this together. And we look forward to further discussions, and we will be sharing this information through social media. So thank you very much.